One of the big questions many had after the failed G4 revival was why would corporate owner Comcast even attempt such a thing in the first place? Well, thanks to a new exclusive in-depth interview CultureScape conducted with Indiana Froskurinn Black herself, we may have an answer to that. And if accurate, it's a real doozy. In this editorial then, I will begin with detailing why bringing back G4 was a futile endeavour in the first place, before going through Frosk's frankly shocking take on why it was done, and finally a brief recap of the rant and its fallout, from Frosk's point of view. Many like to claim that Frosk single-handedly killed the G4 revival, but that's an oversimplification. Frosk's rant was in fact partially successful in that it did put the G4 revival on the radar of quite a few potential viewers. But where the G4 executives thought the exposure would increase viewership, they found that everyone who learned G4 was back ended up rooting for it to go away again. That kind of brand detraction may have sped up the demise, but only by a matter of weeks. In another world where Frosk's planned New Year's rant wasn't the attack on the audience that we got, but instead a rant about Rockstar's mishandling of Red Dead Redemption, which she claimed was her original plan, then all that would have happened was that G4 continued on in obscurity, completely under most people's radar, right up until corporate decided to pull the plug and write off the loss, which probably wouldn't have happened any later than December of 2022 at the latest. Because the simple fact of the matter is that the G4 revival was doomed to fail from day one. I submit that with or without Frosk's rant, corporate owner Comcast would have pulled the plug on G4 by now anyway, because there was no reason to carry on burning more piles of money on it into 2023. The only thing about this whole ordeal I have never been able to wrap my head around is why the hell would anyone of reasonably sound mind even attempt a G4 revival in the first place? G4 had its day, and that day was before the platforms that passionate fans and would-be content creators used to broadcast themselves now had sprung into existence. When they emerged, G4 was outcompeted by its own audience who did what they did, only better. That's why G4 went away the first time, and there's even less demand for a corporate product like that now, so it's a mystery to me why anyone would even attempt to bring it back in this day and age. Well, Froskurinn just may have revealed the reason why. It is important to note that this tell-all interview is her side of the story. It is the narrative that she wants to put out there, and the interviewer serves her softball questions only, so keep that in mind. We are hearing quote-unquote her truth here. Others involved may have different recollections of events. That said, the one interaction here that stands out to me more so than anything else has to do with why G4 was revived in the first place. This interaction is actually begun by interviewer Peter Pitchke, who brought up common internet rumors for why Tucker Roberts, the executive who spearheaded the G4 revival and who just so happens to be the son of one of the Comcast head honchos, was so intent on doing that. According to the interviewer, these rumors claimed that Tucker's motivation was that he either dated or wanted to date Olivia Munn, and presumably thought bringing G4 back would be helpful to this end. This is where you'd expect Frosk to instantly squash such a rumor, because Olivia Munn doesn't exist to be pretty on the eyes for you, Tucker Roberts, or anyone else. But instead, she said, and I quote, "The one I heard." And remember, Frosk isn't some random gamer browsing the interwebs. She was there, in the building, working there full time, and what she heard then was he dated Olivia Munn, and they wanted to bring back G4, and then in the breakup, it got messy and he kept the project. Or maybe the project at that point was like, the ball had already started rolling, and he was like the finance behind it, so you know who gets to keep the dog. So, in other and slightly extrapolated words, the version of events that Frosk had heard was that a Comcast executive, who is the son of a Comcast head honcho, used to date Olivia Munn, and Olivia Munn presumably must have told her beau that she really wanted G4 to come back so she could return to that gig. Then her beau, the Comcast executive, must have gone to his dad, the Comcast head honcho, and said, "Dad, I want to bring back G4 for my girlfriend." Or more likely, he left that part out, and simply said he wanted to bring back G4. I imagine the dad was probably about to chew his spoiled brat out something fierce, when it occurred to him that it could have been so much worse. So instead, he said, "Okay son, this is your shot. Be your own man, make this work, make your mother and me proud, and make me some money." And then, when everything already was in motion, the relationship with Munn ends, and Tucker is left managing the revival of a network that is now so far along that it can't be stopped, even if the only reason he brought it back in the first place just walked out on him. That sounds more plausible than I would like it to, because if anyone had actually put any thought into it, G4 would never have been brought back. Everything else Frosk had to say about the running of G4, the mismanagement, the lack of planning and coordination, that their usual analytics guys didn't understand or know what to do with YouTube analytics. All of this derived from G4 being brought back without any real plan or strategy in place, which obviously there wasn't. Without that, everyone involved are just doing the job they've been assigned to, winging it as best as they can, while deep inside knowing that this isn't working. Coming from the world of banking, finance, and fintech, I can believe this. In the past, I have myself been involved in one or two huge multi-million-dollar development projects where everyone involved kind of knew something wasn't working due to spotty decision-making at the very beginning. That is, everyone except upper management, who for whatever reason ignored all the red flags and staff warnings, until the problems were so bad that the only option was to write off everything and at the very least prevent any further losses. Though, to be fair to the upper managements I served under, they always had better justifications for their spotty decision-making than that the son of the boss had a fling with Olivia Munn. Though I guess in a company like Comcast, stuff like that can happen. To me, this was the big reveal. Outside of that, Frosk spent the interview more or less maintaining how everything that happened was everyone else's fault. On the topic of her rant, Frosk said it was mostly written by her and approved by the immediate executives, which we have heard and reported before, though we emphasized that it was not approved by any of the Comcast higher-ups. She also said she wrote the rant with their live audience of approximately 2,000 in mind, but it wasn't her idea to clip and repost it, which was when her rant went viral far beyond G4's limited audience. She also justified her more out-there statements in that rant, like accusing G4's audience of considering it normal to brag about who they looked at while jacking off, by essentially saying that she saw at least a couple of users do that in some comment section or other, and probably in jest, although she might not have gotten that. But at any rate, she maintained that when the clip went viral beyond G4's very limited live audience, this was out of context. Here is where I would interject that you shouldn't even rant to an audience of 2,000, or hell 200 for that matter, about what a couple of guys allegedly did, because you're still tacitly holding everyone else accountable. Even the interviewer is perplexed about what G4 thought would happen, pushing for that clip of Frosk attacking the audience to go viral, yet he somehow doesn't direct that question to the person who actually wrote and performed the rant. Either way, Frosk is clear it was everyone else's fault, and she didn't get enough support. For those interested in further details on this and her full statements in context, the full interview is linked in the description. With that, do you think impressing Olivia Munn really was the reason why G4 was brought back, or could there be more to it? Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments.